All right. Well, God bless you, everybody, and thank you for joining. We are certainly looking at a very heavy lesson today in Ezekiel chapter number 32. 33 and 34 are going to show where transition comes in, but we have to get through chapter 32 to conclude this portion of the book of Ezekiel. So, if you will, kindly go ahead and tag someone as I try to adjust my instruments here. But go ahead and tag somebody, place a post up. Go ahead and post it, and also like and subscribe. But right now, we have a very heavy lesson to look into, and what it ultimately is going to teach us is when God says that I have no pleasure in the death of the wicked, that He really means it. So let's go ahead and turn to Ezekiel chapter number 32. All right. Again, thank you for joining us. And let's go ahead and go into the book of Ezekiel, chapter number 32. Now, if you've been following this study, you know that it's been very, very challenging to listen to some of the things that were said, the wrath of God, the anger, the vengeance of God that He took against sin, and so many things that were occurring in the previous books. But in this particular chapter, God is showing us something different. He is showing us that, I'm doing all these things, and all these things are occurring, but my heart and my desire is that no soul would be lost. There's no pleasure in it. And I don't know that I've ever had a moment that I could say that the person that's done, or should I say, some of the things that are happening, God bless you, Sister Selena. There are things that people have done, and you always say vengeance belongs to God. I have a t shirt that says, I'm gonna go ahead and let God handle that. And that's what it says. I'm gonna go ahead and let God handle that. But if we're honest, when things do begin to occur, we say, well, yeah, see, God doesn't like ugly, or vengeance belongs to the Lord. You reap what you sow, which is true. But I want you to see the heart of God in this lesson, because He has dealt with His people. First of all, I was going through the chapters, and the first 25 chapters, we're up to 32 now. So you should turn to 32. I think you are going to love God more than ever before. But up to chapter number 25, well, the first three chapters were preparing Ezekiel for ministry. He had to prepare his heart. And even in the way that he prepared his heart, by showing him his glory, by declaring to him his righteousness, by imparting commandments to him that he would have to do and say things that no other prophet had to do or say before. It took a commitment. And in the midst of the commitment, God deals with Ezekiel and tells him now, this part of the prophecy, after all the other grievous things you have done, now in this part of your prophecy, Ezekiel, I'm going to take your wife. That's right. He said, I'm going to take your wife away from you. And it's going to happen with a stroke. I'm going to just do it. It's not going to be a prolonged period of agony and decline. I'm going to take your wife away with a stroke. And here's what I need for you to do. Do not grieve openly. Do not grieve publicly. So because of that, God bless you, Lady Jenkins. So I'm going to take her, but I've got a caveat here. I don't want you to show grief in public. I know you're human. He said she's the desire of your eyes, but when she dies, you go out in public, you carry on, you present yourself in the way as usual and carry on as usual and no public grieving. And that was for the sake of Israel understanding that God loves his people, and Israel or Judah, they are all going to be spoken of as one in this book, even though they were separated in the southern and northern in the southern and northern territories. But God is loving his people, and to the point, even though they were wrong, and he gave them many pleas and opportunities, and he tried to draw them and turn them around, forgave them multiple times. If you ever know what that's like, to be hurt, and for the same individual to hurt you over and over, and you forgive over and over again. And then finally, the time of judgment comes. And usually with people, because human hearts are different, with people, when you've had enough, and you really don't care what happens after that. But not with God. He has to uphold his word. He has to take away the people. He has to destroy the people and the evil that they were turning to, because it was threatening the ultimate, which is the coming of Christ and the hearts of the people being turned into the fathers. It was threatening all that because they were into idolatry. So they were turning away from the true and living God, the righteous wonder. And they were being turned unto idols, so he had to deal with that. All right. So when he deals with them, he said, I want you to let this be a lesson to the people of God, that the desire of your eyes, your passion, the woman that you love has been taken away, and no public grieving. So that's the first part of Ezekiel, God preparing him, and then concluding with God telling him now, today mark the calendar. And a few weeks ago we had that lesson, mark calendar, because today is the day that the Babylonians are going to show up. And they're going to show up, and they're going to come in to destroy, and they're going to come in to kill, and they're going to bring the swords that is going to spill a lot of blood. So they did, as Ezekiel said, they besieged the city, they surrounded it. And so then God says, now, I want you to turn away from this nation turn away from Jerusalem, and I want you to start prophesying to the enemies of God and the enemies of my people. I want you to begin to prophesy to them and let them know that now is the time for them to give an account for the things that they did, the role that they played in the demise of my people. And for purpose, I am going to judge you specifically according to your purpose. So the first ones were the Ammonites. And he said, because you laughed. Okay, so I don't like that. So if you laugh at your enemies, or if you feel that you can take pleasure in someone else's suffering, remember that, because it brought judgment. Give me a cup. It brought judgment to the Ammonites. No, thank you. Excuse me. It brought judgment to the Ammonites. All right. So then after that, it was Tyre, the king of Tyre, because he had such um, insensitivity and he was so inhumane until he said, "Oh, good, they're getting cut off, they're being destroyed. We can. That means more business for us. That means that we get to grow now that they're being wiped off. No sense of humanity whatsoever." So God said, "Because you took that posture, I am going to wipe you out, and not only wipe you out, but I'm going to wipe this city, Tyre and Tyrus." Are synonymous. They're the same place in the Bible in the Old Testament. He said, I am going to wipe your people out. I am going to destroy this nation. I'm going to destroy the king. And I am so mad that I am going to scrape this city down to the rock, down to the stone, and there'll be nothing there except for a rock, or there will be just a stone for fishermen to stand on and to throw their nets out for a drought. Right? So then he goes over to Egypt. And in Egypt, he decides that he's going to, God bless you, Lady Holder and Sister Crystal, he's going to judge them because Egypt was Egypt was a mighty nation, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Egypt was a mighty nation, a mighty people, and because of their, I mean, they were a spectacle to behold. They didn't just have fierce horsemen and a great, praise the Lord, my dear, and a great, they didn't just have fierce horsemen and great generals and know and have strategies, because they were conquerors. They really were. They were a world power at one time, and they were really conquerors. So they to be looked upon for help, which is what Judah did. They, God bless you, Pastor Marbley. They, when they looked upon them, they said, "We know Egypt is strong, and perhaps they'll be our ally in this because the Babylonians are coming. We've got the word, and we need help." And Egypt agreed that they would come. You know, people speak things in their mouth, but their heart is far from you. And when trouble came, they never showed up. So when the Babylonians got there, and they were besieging the city every day, every moment of every day, the Israelites were looking around, when are the Egyptians going to come and give us some of relief or a bit of a reprieve from what we're doing? Because Egypt had battles with the Babylonians before, and their battles with the Babylonians had resulted in some cases that they defeated them, and sometimes they were defeated. So they were formidable enemies. And so when they called for Egypt to come and help, Egypt didn't show up. So now God goes over and he deals with the king of Egypt, because you're the head and you call the shots. Now pay attention to this, because this is not only for our nation and for our churches and for the people, but this is for everybody's. Thank you so much. All right, everybody, give me a second. It's been a rough day, so I'm going to drink a little bit of ginger ale while you pray. So Israel, thanks, Dan. So Israel, calling upon them, they were calling and expecting help. And Israel didn't show up, and God got mad. Even though he sent the Babylonians, he said the Babylonians were his instruments. He said, but you told them you were going to come, and you lied, and you deceived them. You gave them false hope, and you caused them to tremble and to hope in you, and you sat back and allowed for it to happen. And so now I am going to have to judge you for that. That was the king. Now, if that wasn't enough, God goes on and says, now, and we're going to deal with you connected with the people of Egypt. We're going to deal with you connected with the people of Egypt. Now, this is where this book starts off, where this particular chapter is at. Now, before I go into the lesson, I want to give you just this word of encouragement that now, after all of this, we're going to start looking at God telling Israel, now you still have a future. That's what you have to rejoice in, that you still have a future. The others were done away with utterly, and we're going to read about that. And but we still have a future in God. Okay, when the angels sinned, they were kicked out of heaven. We know that, Lucifer and the angels, and that followed him, and also these individuals that sinned and went against God's people, they were judged too. And that's what God is trying to show you. But now we, who are born of his spirit and washed in his blood, we have been given redemption by the eternal spirit that possessed and used Christ to bring about our salvation. It was very costly, very expensive. And so now God is saying, I've got to deal with the Egyptians, and I want to tell you the nature of these people. Now, I love that God tells about the nature of people. You can't get a better psychologist than this. He understands people's purposes, their ways, their thoughts, their intentions. And with their thoughts and intentions, God is very intentional. But he's going to show you something here today. So let's go to Ezekiel chapter number 32. All right, now I'm going to put it up on the screen so it may look like you may be able to tell that I'm reading. I thought it would be a little bit easier. All right, chapter number 2, verse 1. And please listen with your spirit, because God loves us. God, this is not a here I come, I'm mad, I'm going to get you. You have, pushed me over the edge. It's not even that type of a message in this chapter. God bless you, Sister Morgan. But this is the type of a it may not sound like it. It may sound like, oh, what's God mad about now? Oh my God, who is he killing today? And what has got him so on the warpath? But this is a lamentation. And a lamentation is not the shedding of tears, just the mere shedding of tears. A lamentation is with crying and weeping and travailing and moaning and groaning and sometimes howling. When they would have a funeral, and it was like a funeral dirge for Tyre as well. But here, when he gets to Egypt, it's howling and crying. So these aren't words of I am going to show you who you're dealing with, but this just listen to how he approaches the people of God. He says in chapter number 31, verse 1, and it came to pass in the 12th year, in the 12th month, in the first day of the month, that the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, now, this is after they had besieged the city and they had got in and they had destroyed. And so they had killed. Now God's people are dead. And this was the lineage for Christ to come through. And this was the land that God had decided, this is the place just for you. And so God is grieving. And so he's going to grieve and he's going to lament through the prophet. Now, we know that he's dealing with him because he said, don't say anything else to them. Yes, oh, the love of God runs so deep. It's so amazing, Pastor Marbley. But he's saying that in this passage, I want you to understand that I am hurting because I have passion. People say God doesn't care about your tears. God is not moved by your sadness. God is moved by faith. All right, you know what? You're not the person to talk to me today, because here is what the scripture is saying concerning the heart of God. He tells Ezekiel, now I need you to speak unto Pharaoh, prophesy to him. And he says, take up, verse number 2, son of man, take up a lamentation for Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Now, This was a heathen. This was an idolater. This was somebody that didn't care about God. But look at what he says. Say unto him, thou art like a young lion of nations. So, you know, a lion has its respect because a young lion or a lion is, you know, king of the beast, very majestic, respected and revered by all other creation. And so, and that's naturally, that's not without force. That is key. You can write that one down and take it to the bank. Your leadership, okay, so in his opinion, he was a lion, but God said you're like a lion because you're majestic leadership. I mean, they dressed up, they had their garb that they wore, their colors, they even garnished the horses that they rode upon and even put, you know, decorations on them so that they were just marvelous in their appearance. But he says, take up a lament. Now, that means you start weeping here. You start the howling and crying here when you're talking because you're lamenting for Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And he said unto him, thou art like a young lion of a lion of nations, and thou art as a whale in the seas. And thou canst thou camest forth with thy rivers. Now he's saying, let me tell you about your nature. You're like a whale in the sea. A whale is a very immense animal, you know, sea life, but he's very immense. So he makes more ripples than a little fish. He's going to make waves. He's going to stir things up. He said, you're like a whale in the sea. He said, and you came forth with your rivers. And you know, rivers have motion. He said, you came forth and you brought that. As if you yourself weren't enough, you brought along with you the flow. And he said, and you troubled the waters with your feet and fouled the rivers. Now, why do we need to look at that? Because you came forth. Now, in your leadership, you didn't sit as a majestic lion or one that just was naturally revered, but you came like a whale or like a crocodile, is what the translation says in some places. And you stirred up the waters. You brought with you, along with you, rivers, meaning people and a multitude in your army. And you fouled the waters. Ezekiel, your message today is to let them know that your nature is that the way that you lead and the way that you are ruling is not a way that is appropriate for leading humanity. You stirred up, you kept confusion going. You were abusive, you were abrasive, you were harsh. Many people suffered and died at your hands because of your decisions. And not only that, but a lot of times, because, I'm sorry, I don't mean to point, but a lot of times because of what people see us do, they learn how to take up the same attitude, posture, approach, create a culture of abusiveness and abrasiveness and demeaning. And so you have done some awful things. So that's why I am lamenting today, because you have finally come to the place where it is time. And there is an appointed time for everything that happens under the sun. He said, and the last part of it, he said, and you foul the rivers. So the stench of your behavior and your approach and your ways was disgraceful. It was disgusting. It was repulsive. It was as low as a human could be. You were that person. Now, in verse number 3. But now remember, he's not telling them off. He's crying and he is lamenting. Blessings, Mother Wilson. And he is lamenting. Verse number 3, he said, thus saith the Lord, I will therefore spread out my net over thee with a company of many people, and they shall bring thee up in my net. So how do you catch a whale. I mean, it's one thing to catch a fish, or even a school of fish, or even some huge fish and sharks and so forth. But he said, I am going to spread my net. So you're going to be caught up in my net, and they will bring you forth. Now, I look at the book of Job, and in Job, he tells Job, what about the Leviathan? And this was a notorious creature of the sea. And some say would be like a sea serpent or like a dragon, similar to what we're reading right now. And he said, who can take Leviathan and put their hook in his jaw? He said, if you ever do it, you'll never try it again, because the Leviathan was fierce and beyond, above and beyond your ability. So if you ever try that, you'll never do it again. But now God is saying, it's me, and I am going to take my net, and I am going to draw you out. I am going to pull, because he was in a place where, I mean, if a whale is beached, or if a whale is brought out of the waters, then he's going to struggle, because he gets his oxygen through his gills, which pulls the oxygen out of the water. So as long as he's in his natural habitat, and as long as he is in a comfortable environment where he can navigate and where he can move about, no struggles, no problem. God said, the first thing I'm doing, I'm taking you out of your environment, because you're comfortable in your environment. God bless you, Lady Fikes. Because you're comfortable in your environment, and look how you act, and look what you do. So the first thing I'm going to do is take you out of your environment. And that was verse number 4. 4. He said, and I'm going to leave you on land. So it's not like I'm going to take you out and then I'm going to, how they do. They say, oh, this fish is too little. You can't catch a fish that little. Take them off the hook, throw them back in. So he can try to heal up from your little hook in his jaw, and he can begin to get the oxygen that he needs through the water. But God said, I'm going to leave you on land. Now keep in mind that these aren't just words. This is a lament of crying. He said, I'm going to leave you on land, and I will cast you forth upon the open field. Okay. I am going to cast. When you say cast, you're not saying toss. You're not saying, I'm going to place you. I'm going to just drop you over here. It means I am going to throw. So remember that, because cast means to throw. So he said, I'm going to throw you forth upon the open field. No water there. You're out of your habitation. You're in another place now. You're in unfamiliar territory, and you're going to have to deal with the circumstances. He said, and I will cause all the fowl of the heaven to remain upon thee, and I will fill the beasts of the whole world with thee. What is he saying? With your big, huge self. I am going to throw you out here, and just like vultures do, a friend of mine told me he was driving out to California, running out of gas, and you could just see the vultures circling above head. That's what he's saying. These beasts of the field and these fowl of the air, I'm going to leave you out there. They're going to just feast on your remains. But God goes deeper. All right, verse number 5 says, and I will lay thy flesh upon the mountains and will fill the valley with thy height. Okay, so you're going to be a huge spectacle for all those that are around to see. And it's going to be such a spectacle that the word is going to spread far from Egypt. It's going to be a word that is going to just travel to different places, and it's going to bring fear upon the hearts of many people to know Egypt. I brought down the Pharaoh. He's laid. Okay, yes, he's going to be laid upon the field, and his fowl of the air and the beasts are going to eat his flesh. Now, not just him, but also the people that were with him. They're going to go, and they're going to be troubled. They're going to be judged, because they were out of the will of God, and they were out of order. So God is saying, and they're going to feast on you. Now listen to this, verse number 6 says, I will also water with thy blood. I'm going to water with your blood the land wherein thou swimmest. So this place that's so familiar to you, where you go up and down, you rule in, you enjoy in, you have your banquets in, you get your honor in, right in that place where you were lifted up. He said, I am going to take your blood and I am going to water I'm going to water this particular land. Your blood is going to soak into the ground. Now he's not just talking about one man, because one man couldn't do it, but he's talking about all of this river that he had brought with him, and his army and his nations and everybody that is involved with this man. So be careful who you associate with, and be careful who you let influence you to behave and to conduct yourselves, that you take up and begin to mimic their behavior, because he says they're going to swim in your blood. It's just a matter of time. But verse number 7 says, and when I shall put thee out, I will cover the heaven and make the stars thereof dark. So it's going to be a very, very somber time. It's like Jesus when he was on the cross and the sun didn't shine, but he said it's going to be darkness because I am going to make the stars go dark. And so the heavens and the constellation are also in on this entire scene of this judgment. God is heavy. Excuse me, I need some more ginger ale. I have not been good today. Okay, verse number 7. Now, verse number 8, he says, all the bright lights of heaven will I make go dark over thee. I'm going to shut off the heavens. Didn't he say in one place that if I shut up the heavens, that there be no rain? I think it's Second Chronicles, chapter number 7. But he's going to shut off the light show that has provided the lesser light by night. The greater light ruled in the daytime, which is the sun, but this is going to happen at night. And it's going to happen in it's going to be dark, unusually dark, because I'm going to turn off the stars. He said, and I will cover the sun with a cloud, and the moon shall not give her light. This is going to be a time of universal, can I say? Or should I say a time of, the universe is going to mourn. Now, he's telling us to lament, but he's telling them because God is angry with the wicked every day. Verse number 8, he says, all the bright lights of heaven I will make go dark, and set darkness upon thy land. That happened before. He's doing it again. Remember the plague of darkness? And it was so dark they could feel it. Well, he's saying, I'm going to make darkness come upon your land. You should have learned from history. All right. He says, and I will also vex the hearts of many people when I shall bring the destruction among the nations into the countries which thou hast not known. Now, some of the people that you have influenced, you didn't even know everybody that you influenced. God bless you, Elder Mims. You didn't even know everybody that you had influence over, but you were giving an influence by your presentation. He said, and I am going to vex their hearts, because he says, when I shall bring my destruction upon the nations into the countries, it will be into countries that you have not known. So your fame has reached far and wide, and abroad you have been known. And they are going to be so vexed and deeply sorrowful about what I'm doing to you. All right, verse number 10, he says, and I will make many people. We got to get to this because this is the heart of God. There are some other scriptures. But look at this. He says, now remember their crying, yea, I will make many people amazed at thee, and their kings shall be horribly afraid for thee. So other people are thinking, I don't want God to come after me. I don't want to get on the wrong side of God. I don't want to put myself into a place where I would be in their shoes. He said, I'm going to make many people to be amazed at thee, and kings shall be horribly afraid of thee. When I shall brandish, oh, this is harsh. When I brandish my sword before them, when I show them, when I pull my weaponry out, I'm going to do it in the presence of all of these people that you had an influence with. Why? Because an example has got to be set, and because righteousness has got to be returned, and I have to show the penalty of sin is death. He said, and shall tremble, and they shall tremble every moment, the terror that's going to come upon them for what they see. And these people were used to seeing destruction and death, and they were vicious. They plundered and they pillaged, and they have very horrible ways of treating their captives. And they still to this day have those different ways. But he says they're going to tremble because of you, and they are going to be afraid every minute. And they're going to be shaking continually and perpetually, and they shall tremble every moment, every man for his own life in the day of thy fall. They're going to be looking at it like, no, Lord have mercy, not me. Never let me put myself or allow myself to get beside myself and not think, because God is really destroying Egypt in a way that humanity never could. For thus said the Lord, the sword of the king of Babylon shall come upon thee. So Babylon is still the instrument God is using. Now, he used them first to go and besiege his people. Judgment must begin at the house of God. So he began there and he judged them. And now, again, this is about a year to 18 months after they finally did get in and destroy them. He goes on down to Ammon and said, you shouldn't laugh, kills them off. Then he goes to Tyre and said, all you were thinking about was the wealth you were going to get, and you were going to go in there and get whatever spoils were left. I'm going to kill you, and I'm going to wipe your city. Everything's going to be in the ocean. All right. And then he goes over to, he's going to talk about the others. It gets really intense. But then he goes over to the king of Egypt, and now Egypt, and he says that in verse number 12, and the sword of the mighty will I cause thy multitude to fall. So again, Babylon is coming in. They're very capable. Now you think they'd be tired. You think that they'd be wiped out and they would have been destroyed. They were fierce. Nebuchadnezzar and his army and the multitude he brought with them, they were ready. So they went from one nation to the next because God was using them. And when God is using you, he will give you power to do it. He will give you he will give you supernatural power to supersede what human ability is able to do. So he says, and I will cause your multitude to fall, and the terrible of the nations, all of them, and they shall spoil the pomp of Egypt, and all the multitude thereof shall be destroyed. So this sense of being, so pompous and high-minded, and all of your, grandeur that you have and the fear that people have of you, I'm going to put an end to that. I'm going to destroy it along with the multitude that came along with you. Verse number 13, and I will destroy also all the beasts thereof from beside the great river. Neither shall the foot of man trouble them anymore, nor the hoofs of beasts trouble them. I'm going to wipe this place out, man and beast. Verse 14, then I will make the waters deep and cause the rivers to run like oil, saith the Lord. Now they are crying. Now, if you haven't felt sorrow yet, I'm just going to tell you, take a deep breath, because it gets dreadful. Verse number 15, when I shall make the land of Egypt desolate, and the country shall be destitute of that whereof it was full, you were bustling, you were prosperous, you were beautiful, you were a jewel among nations, you were a great power in all the known world. He said, but I'm going to make all of that go away, and it's going to be a desolate place, a scene of catastrophe. It's going to be a scene of destruction and utter ruins, and it's going to be destitute wherein you were full. I will smite all them that dwell therein, everybody. And why does he have to kill everybody? Is a good question. Give me a second for some ginger ale. God bless you, Bishop Burr. We love you. Hoping to see you this December there in West Africa. All right. Okay, so he says, and this is the lamentation that they shall lament her. So these words that I just read, all these things that we said from verses 1 to 16, he said, that is the lamentation. That is the part where I want you to cry and weep and howl and chant these words and chant about what has happened to this great and this magnificent place called Egypt and their armies. So this is the lamentation. He says, the daughters of the nations shall lament. They shall lament for her, even from Egypt, for all her multitude, saith God. And it came to pass that on the 12th year, so now this is the second part of the prophecy that he's given to Egypt. He said, now it came to pass. So this is just shortly after the 12th month, the 15th day. So it looks like it's just a few days to maybe just a couple of weeks afterwards, he comes back with another prophecy. And that prophecy that Ezekiel's given this time in the 15th day of the month, that the word of the Lord came to me saying, Son of man, wail for the multitude of Egypt and cast them down, even her and her daughters and the famous nations, unto the nether parts of the earth, with them that go down into the pit. Now remember, I said a moment ago, remember the word cast is not to toss or to lay down or to, reverently place or to even drop, but it is to throw. Now he's saying, I want you to cast them, throw them down, even her and the daughters of the famous nation. Okay, when they say daughters, it's not just women, but he's speaking of additional allies to this nation. Throw them down, and look where to, unto the nether parts of the earth, with them that go down into the pit. So they are being thrown down into the nether part. Now, the word nether, positionally, it means beneath. Okay, so when you say nether, it's one thing. Okay, my upstairs, my basement would be a nether part of the house because it's beneath it. But when you get to the flat earth, what is beneath it? The underworld. So he says, cast them down to the nether parts of the earth with them, makes it very clear, that go down into the pit. And so this is just hard because I am looking at a very, very treacherous scene here where there is wrath being carried out. And he says, but I want you to lament, but I also want to make sure that you understand that I'm not getting any pleasure out of this. This is just justice being carried out. So he's letting them know that. So there's a lament going on, but it gets so much worse. We're going to get through this. It gets horrible. How are you going to throw somebody down into hell? Not they die and then their soul descends. He said, throw them down. Cast them down into the netherworld. Throw them down into hell. All right. Verse number, Son of man, multitude. Okay. Verse number 19. Whom dost thou pass in beauty? Go down and be thou laid with the uncircumcised. Now, if they're cast into the pit, if they have been thrown into hell, he's saying, go down. Where all your beauty is. Where are you with as far as your beauty? Who are you more beautiful than? Now he begins by telling him he was like Assyria, which Assyria was very, very beautiful, and it was stately, and it was like the trees of Lebanon and the cedars of Lebanon. And you weren't even that beautiful. You weren't even that magnificent, though magnificent you were. He said, now that you've been cast into the pit, go ahead on down and be thou laid with the uncircumcised. Just think of that for a moment. Be laid down in the pit with the uncircumcised. 20 says, they shall fall in the midst of them that are slain by the sword. She is delivered to the sword, been given over to the sword to be killed by the sword, and draw her and all her multitudes. 21, the strong among the mighty shall speak to him out of the midst of hell. Okay, do you really believe the Bible is telling the truth? The strong among the mighty shall speak to him. Speak to who? Speak to the king of Egypt, Pharaoh, when he shows up in hell. This stuff cannot be made up. When I read the Bible, I believe every word is true. A conversation. And listen to what happens. He says, and speak to him out of the midst of hell with them that help him. They are gone down, they lie uncircumcised, slain by the sword. Now, when he says they lie uncircumcised, slain by the sword, they've been killed, but their bodies are laying upon the earth. And then he tells the state, he said, they're gone down. And they are uncircumcised, meaning they were not my people. We had no relationship. I had no covenant with them. I had no dealings with them other than to offer unto them opportunity, but they spawned it. He says, so they've gone down. They've gone down where? They've gone into the pit. How did they go down? They were cast down. He said, and they lie there uncircumcised, slain by the sword. So your body is up on the earth, and they're talking in hell. Their bodies laid on the earth, and they've come down into hell. Asher is there. All right, now he's going to start naming them off. Oh, look, Asher is there, and all her company. His graves are about him, and all them that are slain and fallen by the sword. All those people that were killed up there among Asher, they're here. They're right here in hell. They've been thrown down too. 23, whose graves are set in the sides of the pit, and her company is round about her grave, and all them slain, fallen by the sword, which caused terror in the land of the living. So you were just a holy terror. You were just a complete monster. You were just so full of power and authority that you brought much anxiety and grief upon the earth. Now look at you. Your body is laying on the earth, and your soul is down here with all of us. Asher is here, and let's see who else is there, because he's going. This is a conversation. This is going on. They listen. When you leave this world, you know when you have been departed from your body. He said, "The strong and mighty are there." Asher is there. We said that. Verse 23, whose graves are set in the sides of the pit. Their graves are up there. That's where their graves are. But here they are. Their souls are here in hell. And round about her grave, all of them slain, fallen by the sword, which caused terror in the land. 24. Oh, guess who else? There's Elam. Now, Elam were Elam. Elam were the Persians. So Persians, he's recognizing the Persians are modern day Iraq. Okay, you notice that they're over in the Persian Gulf. But I'm sorry, Iran is modern day Iran. Iraq would be the old Mesopotamia, the current day Iraq. All right, he said, oh, Edom is here, where? In hell, and her multitude round about her grave. Look at all the people standing around her grave, but that's just the body. that up there, it's just the body here, but he's down here. Elam and the people and the multitude with Elam, they're here. And all of them that were slain by the sword, because Nebuchadnezzar was up and down that itinerary. He was up and down that particular region of the world, and he was doing what God told him to do. He said, they have fallen by the sword, which are gone down. They also, when they landed there, they were uncircumcised as well. They didn't have any part with me. They didn't have a covenant with me. They didn't have a relationship with me. They were idolaters. They cared nothing for me. He said, and they are now where? In the nether parts of the earth. Remember, the nether parts of the earth are the lower parts of the earth, the underworld, where they are right now in hell. Because remember, we just read it. Speak to them in hell. Where is it at? All right, I'm looking, scrolling too fast, but let's go back down. Okay, I don't see it, so I'm going to keep going. So we were at verse number 23, and the graves on the side of the pit, and her company is round about her. All of them, the graves are up there, but they're down here in hell. Okay, they're in another world, fallen by the sword, and which caused terror in the land. You just were running things, and people just were afraid of you, and they served you out of intimidation. That's witchcraft. God bless you, Brother Ty. They serve you out of your manipulation, your control, intimidation, because, it was fear. And fear brings torment. So you tormented them with your fear. And now here you are. Look, you're in hell. You've fallen by the sword. Your graves are up there. They probably gave you a nice, beautiful burial, but it didn't matter to you because you weren't in that burial. You didn't see the pomp and circumstance that went into it. So you're in hell. Look at what he says further in 24. He said, you're in the nether parts of the earth, the lower parts of the earth. Nether parts, again, nether means positionally to be beneath. So you're under the earth. Okay, which caused terror in the land of the living. Yet they bore their shame with them that go down into the pit. So it wasn't, I expect to get out of here, or, forgive me for everything. They have shame. They now have shame for the way that they have treated and the way that they have ruled and the way that they have conducted themselves and destroyed and made life horrible for people. Oh, now there's shame, but it's too late because now, he says, you have gone down to the pit. 25, and we're getting ready to get very sorrowful. They have set her bed in the midst of the slain with all her multitude, her graves around about her, all of them uncircumcised, all of them. They just, all sinners, none of them wanted me, none of them cared about me. I care because they are I have made them, I created them in my likeness and my image, and I get no pleasure. But look at them, they stayed that way. They didn't change. They didn't correct themselves. He said, now they're in the grave as an uncircumcised individual that has been slain by the sword through their terror, which caused in the land of the living. Yet have they borne their shame that go down and to the midst of them slain. All right, now here's somebody else, Meshach. And Meshach, Tubal, and all her multitudes. So these are the surrounding areas that were associated like allies with Egypt that fell into the same condemnation and destruction as Egypt. He says, her graves around about him, and all of them are uncircumcised. They ended up living a life, doing whatever they did and being whatever they were being, and now they're slain, and they were caught in their sins. They were taken in their sins and uncircumcised state, and they are slain by the sword, though they caused terror in the land of the living. So even though they were mighty in their place, when I took them out of their natural habitat, when I took them out of their comfort zone, when I took them out of that place where they were so high and lifted up, now they become creatures that are uncircumcised, slain by the sword, no title, no name, no pomp, no circumstance. Now you're in hell. 27. And they shall not lie with the mighty. They are fallen of the uncircumcised, which are gone down to hell. So you can see that the pit, hell, nether parts of the earth, they're all there. That's all the same place that he's referring to. He said, oh, listen to this. And they have gone down to hell with their weapons of war, and they have laid their swords underneath their heads. Okay, let's put on the brakes. They have laid, oh, what have I done? Okay. They have laid their swords underneath their head. Okay. Now, there's an old, there is a practice that they had in those days that when warriors would die, that they would bury them with their weapons because they believed that they may need them in the afterworld. See how superstitious, see how far out there the enemy can have you believing something that is just completely separate from God. So even in their death, they want to be buried with their weapons. So he said they went to sleep and they laid down. God bless you, ringmaster. We love you. And he said they died, and when they buried them, they put their weapons, their shield, and their swords, and etc., put them under their head so that when they get to the afterworld, they could use them if they need them. But guess what? According to this particular scripture, he says that he said they're weapons of war, and they have laid their swords down under their heads. By their iniquities shall be upon their bones, though they were the terror of the mighty in the land. So, with all of that, your weapons, yeah, they put them under your head, but they're right up there on the earth where your bones are at, but your soul is in hell. Verse number 28 says, Yea, thou shalt be broken in the midst of the uncircumcised, and shall lie with them that are slain with the sword. Yeah, you're numbered among the wicked. You're numbered among those that have fallen. You're numbered among those that Nebuchadnezzar and his mighty army and the multitude came after. You, your weapons, and all of your garment, your pomp and circumstance is still on the earth, but your soul is in hell. Oh, here's another one, verse number 29. And Edom is there. I think you all know who Edom is. It used to be Esau, the descendants of Esau. So there's been there has been contention between those two since Esau stole the birthright, and they just passed the hatred right on through, down through generations. And the hatred, and it just went on like the Hatfields and the McCoys. You just never give up. You never forgive. You won't mend fences. You won't come together. So now look at you. You're gone to hell. You never got it together. They're now, you may see them in the Bible. I believe they're called the Idumeans. Idumeans, if you go into the scripture. It is located on the western side of the Arabian Peninsula, Saudi Arabia, on the western coast, and that's where Edom is. But you're going to hear about Edom again. You can go to Isaiah 63, and one says, "Who is this?" Isaiah, the eagle-eyed prophet, God gets a vision, and he sees. He said, "Who is this coming out of Edom with dyed garments of Bozrah?" Coming out of this land of Edom, the Esau's descendants, called also Idumean. He said, and this that is marvelous in his apparel. So his garment is beautiful, but it is stained with the blood of his enemies. And so, I'm sorry, we got to do this, but after this, you're going to see God shows them you have a future, okay? But look at what he's doing. He's making this clear, and this is a dirge or a lament. This is a funeral song. So he says, there's Edom. So they look over, and they see Edom over there. So people that have gone to hell, will see and will recognize other people there, even though they are in torment and they talk. Listen to what it says. It gets a little bit heavier. He says, all her princes with their might uh, are laid by them, their bodies are laid by them that were slain by the sword up on the earth. They shall lie with the uncircumcised and with them that go down to the pit. Okay, the Edomites and show have shown up in hell. He said, and there be the prince of the north. Um, all the Sidonians and all the Sidonians which are gone down with the slain, they too, they're here. I'm looking around and I'm seeing people and nations and all kinds of just I'm seeing so many things that we were upon the earth, but now we're here. We're ashamed of what we have been, what we have done. We have brought ourselves into a place. They're aware now that everything that they did was a vapor. That's what the Bible calls life. He calls it a vapor. He said, and with their terror, they are ashamed of their might, and they lie uncircumcised with them that be slain by the sword, and they bear their shame with them that go down into the pit in hell and suffering. Now, that is chapter number 18. That's the quickest I got through a chapter. But yeah, okay, so let me tell you this because we're closing up early and it's good because I'm going to ask you to pray for me to continue. Oh, it's not, there's more. There's more. Where's that at? Okay. Okay. We have that's verse number 30, and there are 32 verses in this chapter. All right, let's just find out what is going on here. Okay, let me get so I am just all this is stunning me because I had no idea all this conversation was going on. I thought that in hell was just weeping, wailing, gnashing of teeth, suffering, pain. But not, oh look, hey, it seems to me that they'd be in too much. But it's really not the end of the story for them because they have landed in hell. It's not the end of the story because hell is not the final place for those that miss heaven. Hell is also going to be cast into, there it is, the rest of it. Let's go there. So hell is going to be cast into the lake of fire. I'm sorry, death and hell are going to be cast into the bottomless pit. So it's going to be falling, uncircumcision, and it's an eternal situation. Cannot be reversed. All right, now we only have a few more verses. Yea, thou shalt be broken in the midst of the uncircumcised, and shall lie down with them that are slain by the sword. Here you are. You've been taken out. Edom is there, her kings, her princes, so all of those mighty ones, all of them, they're all there. They're kings out of that nation. They were just wicked and ungodly, and they were idolaters. And look at them, they're all here, right here in hell. He said, and they shall lie down with the uncircumcised. And they're there with all the uncircumcised, everybody that rejected God and everything. And listen, just because you go to church and just because you believe in Jesus, all of these people knew there was another God. They knew it. Even with their idolatry, even with their idols that they made with their hands, they knew there was another God. And so, likewise, that just didn't help any at all because even demons believe and they tremble. But, when you know him, it's one thing to know him. But remember, he's saying uncircumcised. He says this repeatedly. They're uncircumcised. What is circumcision? Well, it is the cutting away of that excess. So they never got rid and laid aside the sin, the weight and the sin that does so easily beset them. They never stopped their evil practices and their inhumane behavior. They never stopped stopped exacting authority and being lords over the people. They kept up those ways. So when he says the uncircumcised with them, that is included in that description. 3 more verses. There be the princes of the north, all of them, and all the Zidonians, which are gone down. They're down there with the slain. Everybody that's been killed, here's your soul down here in hell, with their terror that they are ashamed of their might. I am ashamed that I have the power to rule over people, and I misuse my authority. I misuse my power, and I misplace my worship unto an idol and not unto God. And idolatry is not always a statue. It can be your money. It can be your popularity. What does he say? I think he begins in the book of Genesis. Lust of the flesh, which is the desire to enjoy things. Lust of the eyes, which is the desire to have things, because the eyes of man are never satisfied. And the pride of life, the desire for status and greatness. Those two are issues of uncircumcision and idolatry. So this lesson is not something that is obsolete or irrelevant. Don't let the devil tell you, because he doesn't want you to believe it. Because if you ever believe it, perhaps you'll think on it and God will give you repentance. But if you don't think on it, you don't consider it, you'll never repent. You'll never make the wrong right. You'll never get things in order. And then what's going to happen? You're going to come down here. They're going to say, oh, look who's here. Look who just arrived. Oh, look who's already here when we got here. And they are not just talking in this tone that I'm talking in. He says, lament, because these people are in hell and they can't get out. Somebody I know of I went into surgery. I'm going to have some more ginger ale. Please pray for me. And they were in surgery, pardon me. And in the surgery, they said they saw all these people in hell. And when he told his family and told his loved ones, I saw people in hell. He said all those people, they couldn't get out. He said they were running. He said it was so bad. He said, and they couldn't even get out. And this is a grown man that has raised many children. But he's weeping and sobbing. This is what this is, a lament. He was lamenting those people that had arrived in hell. But why wait? And then had to say, I'm ashamed that I didn't change. I'm ashamed that I didn't correct. I'm ashamed that I didn't mend and that I didn't obey and I didn't help somebody and pull somebody up. It's too late. But he's telling us, you cry and lament, because this is their eternal state until the time after the Battle of Armageddon, which was what I was talking about when I mentioned Isaiah 63, coming out of Edom with dyed garments of Bozrah, this that is marvelous in his apparel, traveling in his strength. Why are you red in your apparel? He said, why art thou red in thy apparel? He said, I have trod the winepress alone. I have gone through the battle. I have gone through Armageddon, and I trounced on it. It was like being in a wine vat. I tread the wine vat alone. And I'll tell you something else it says. And he said, my fury, it upheld me. And when they're in the wine vat and they're treading on the grapes with their feet, because of the meat of the grape is squishy and the skin of the grape is thin, when they would step on it, it would provide a very slippery environment. So what they would do is have cords for them to hold on to so that they would not fall. But Jesus says, he said, I have trodden the wine vat alone. He said, but my fury, it upheld me. So he is talking about that, the Battle of Armageddon. So this prophet is prophesying to this nation, but he's also pointing to a day that is going to come. All right, verse number 31. Pharaoh shall see them and shall be comforted. Do not get that twisted. He's not going to see them and say, oh, wow, okay. No, this is going to be, I got caught in my sin and I'm down here suffering. Oh, I see them. They got caught too. And their suffering is not going to lessen his suffering, but he's going to see that the wicked and every nation that forgets God is turned into hell. And Pharaoh and all his army slain by the sword, save the Lord God. Last verse. For I have caused my terror in the land of the living. He shall be laid in the midst of the uncircumcised with them that are slain, even Pharaoh and all his multitude, saith the Lord. That is chapter number 32. Okay, now that we are 3/4 of the way through the book, let's look at chapter number 33 next week. And in chapter 33, the superscription, well, not superscription, but the heading, the watchman's duty, personal accountability, the news of Israel's fall, and that is chapter number 33. All right, so I am going to close that down. We have gone through 32 chapters in the book of Ezekiel, and every word of it is true. We've gone verse by verse. And most of all, that you need to remember is that these people aren't just, laughing and saying, I knew God was going. They're crying, they're weeping, because the heart of God is being displayed in their grief. God doesn't like destroying. He said, I don't get pleasure. Now I can't say that I don't, because when I looked at how they caught Saddam Hussein, I can say this because everybody knows this is how it happened. When they caught Saddam Hussein and in that spider hole, and they put him on the gallows, and they were getting ready to hang him, they asked him if he had any last words. And he said, I am the president of Iraq. And I'm thinking, never repentant of what he has done or acknowledgement for where he has placed himself. So then when they pulled the chute out from under his feet, I saw when they placed the hood, he didn't want the hood on, just put this cord, go ahead and put the noose on my neck, but I don't want that over my face. And when they said they were going to pull the chute, I turned my eyes because I didn't want to see it. But gone into eternity, never to return to this world or have another chance. So that is the lament of Egypt. All right. So now God has dealt with Israel's enemies. Israel's been destroyed. They've got a third wave of captives that have gone to Babylon, and all of these others have become a casualty of the situation. Now, those are hard things to look at, but now we're going to turn, because now God is going to start showing again. He's going to start showing Israel, you have a future. Okay, I have wiped you out in this particular besiege and captivity. He said, but I'm going to spare a remnant, and I'm going to raise you up, and you have a future with me, both here in this earth, and you have a future forever. And my plan to bring the Messiah out of you is still standing. I have not changed my mind. My covenant is good. I have a covenant with you. And remember this, when you have a relationship, when you have a covenant with God, have a relationship, because otherwise you have a covenant and you don't even know him. Know him in intimacy, in suffering, in every single challenge of life. So with that, I'm going to go upstairs and try to feel better so I can go to work tomorrow. So you guys pray for me. And again, thank you so much for joining and being a part of this session. So now what we have is on Wednesday, my husband and myself will be here for the Sunday school lesson. Okay. And then that will be Wednesday. And then on Monday, we come back with chapter number 20, no, chapter number 33. Wow. All right, so with that, I just want to thank you for joining us as I'm looking for my outro. Okay. I will ask you, please go ahead and post these. Please do post them and make sure that other people have the opportunity to see this video. Like, share, and subscribe. All right, God bless you all in Jesus' name.